Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to another episode of Pan the Organizer. In today's video, we're going to be answering 3 common questions. So the first one being pH scale. How important is it when selecting a car shampoo or a car soap? The second question is, when do you use a low pH or acidic shampoo compared to a high pH or an alkaline shampoo? And the third question is, can a touchless soap be as effective to clean a car compared to the traditional wash method, which includes the contact wash? So in this video, I'm going to be sharing my personal thoughts and opinions based on my years of detailing experience. And so we're going to dive right into it. By the way, if we discuss about any products, tools, or equipment, I'll link those in the description under the video for you guys to check them out. So all you have to do is sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Let's dig right into it and start with the first question, which is pH scale, right? How important is considering the pH when buying a car shampoo or a car soap, however you guys call it, right? Well, in a nutshell, we're not going to go too deep into chemistry. I don't want to lose you guys or make you guys fall asleep with too much technical info, but still, I think it's important to have the proper education. So keep in mind, first of all, that what pH is, it measures basically the hydrogen ion activity in a liquid. In a nutshell, again, it tells you basically how basic or a high pH or how acidic or low pH a solution or a liquid is. That's all that means. It doesn't tell you about the chemistry behind the product. It doesn't tell you how effective the product is at cleaning or degreasing. It doesn't tell you how caustic a product can be. It doesn't necessarily also tell you if the product is super safe on a surface or if it can cause damage on a surface. So again, pH measures how alkaline or how acidic a solution or a liquid is. So there's a lot more to it nowadays than that, right? Because maybe 5-10 years ago, yeah, we could basically rely on just reading the pH and see if something was safe for a wax on a surface, right? So we'd assume that a very high pH type soap, a pH 13 or 14, would strip away waxes. And if as long as you stuck to a pH 7 or pH neutral or somewhere around that range, then it's wax safe. But there's actually a lot more to it than that nowadays. Because again, pH doesn't tell you how strong a soap's cleaning power is or how safe it can be on the surface. There's way more to it because there's a lot of additives added today in car shampoos to either make them VOC compliant or make them more safe, to free them of any Teflon or fluoropolamides or any type of negative stuff that can potentially cause issues for the nature or for human life or those kinds of things, right? So there's a lot to take into consideration. There's also examples, and I'm sure you guys have seen this either in the field if you're a professional detailer or if you're a weekend warrior and you've tested a few soaps sometimes, you're looking at the SDS sheets and you're looking at the pH levels, and sometimes it doesn't necessarily correlate, right? You're assuming that a pH 7 is going to be very safe on the surface compared to a pH 14 soap, and that's not always the case. For example, there can be a pH 10 soap that can sometimes be safer on the exterior surfaces of your car compared to a pH 8. There can be a pH neutral soap that can sometimes have stronger cleaning or degreasing power compared to a pH of 9.5 in another soap, right? So again, pH doesn't tell the full story. And I'm sure the majority of the chemists would agree to this. I've interviewed many in my years on YouTube from many different reputable brands. And I think they can all agree on that. pH is only a part of the story. It doesn't tell the full story. So if you only rely on pH, you're missing out on a lot of important information, right? But Pan, once again, we're not experts, right? The majority of the people, they're obviously not chemists, and reading SDS sheets or those information data sheets that certain companies provide, all of them should provide the SDS information, by the way. And so it can get quite confusing to analyze. So I would recommend going on the company's website and look for terms, right? So if you're looking for a regular maintenance wash, for example, a pH neutral soap, look on the company's website and you're usually going to see some terms safe on the surface, or wax safe, for example, will not strip any waxes. That usually means that it's close to a neutral, right? Anywhere from pH 6, maybe to pH 8.5. pH 9 sometimes. It really depends, but in general, anything close to that neutral, right? As long as we're not going to the extremes. By extremes, we're saying pH 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That 13, 14, that's the extreme of the alkaline side, right? Or the basic side. And we're talking about extremes of pH 1, pH 2, pH 3 on the acidic side. So those are the extremes, but anywhere in between usually is safe as long as they mention that. If it doesn't say on the website, feel free to reach out to the brand. So if we look at my own brand, for example, Clean by Pan the Organizer, shameless plug. So this is the Clean by Pan the Organizer shampoo. So on the SDS, this is a pH of 7.5 in the bottle, and once diluted into your wash bucket or into your foam cannon with water, this is a pH neutral. So, but again, we said that doesn't necessarily tell the full story, right? So, okay, once diluted, this is a pH neutral or pH 7, and it's fine. But beyond that, it has very strong degreasing capabilities. So when you're going to do your contact wash, you're going to notice how good this is to attack some road film or road grime, more so than maybe perhaps other neutral soaps out there. So it has strong degreasing powers. Of course, not as much as some that would be intended for that purpose, right? So if you're looking something to really remove road film, if it's still present after you use a neutral shampoo, that's when you can bust out some of the pH 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 kind of soaps, depending on what your uses are. Or if you have mineral deposit accumulation, we're going to talk about that in just a few seconds. When would you use a high pH and low pH? But if you have a lot of mineral deposits or water spots and you find that a neutral soap is not enough, well, that's when you can bust out the acidic soaps, right? So in this case, once again, once diluted, this is pH neutral, but it still has very strong cleaning capabilities. And that's why I like this so much for your just your general weekly washes, or you can use this as often as you want. Because we mentioned on the website as well, this is safe on your waxes, on your sealants, on your ceramic coatings, or even if you don't have any protection, this is safe on all your exterior surfaces. So we make sure that the formulation in there is safe for exterior use and also frequent use as often as you wish or you want. Also, there's no PTFE, no Teflon, no fluoropolymers in there. There's no fluorine, and there's basically none of those forever chemicals. That shampoo is fantastic for many different reasons, but let's get back to the topic now. So pH is only a part of the equation or a part of the story. There are extremes on the pH scale, and in between, there's that neutral or neutral-ish kind of soaps, but that doesn't tell you all the story. So dig into some information, do your tests as well, figure out if a soap is good for your conditions, your environment, because we're looking for a lot more, right? When you're looking into a shampoo, if you're looking just at the pH scale, you're missing out on potentially even more important things. For what? Like what, for example? Like lubrication on the surface. That's probably one of the most important things, is how lubricious or slippery that soap is. So a slippy or a soap that has more of those lubricity or lubricious characteristics, or more of that slip on the surface, is probably going to induce less marring during the contact wash, right? Because your mitt or your microfiber towel or whatever wash media you use to clean your vehicle is going to glide with kind of that buffer in between. So the soap, by acting like as lubrication on the surface, prevents any marring or damaging on that surface. Because also keep in mind, the majority of the swirls, the scratches, or the marring, which we call the love marks on a vehicle, typically happen from two stages. The washing, when you're using your wash media, so again, you're contacting the paint, right? And in the drying stages, if you're using a microfiber drying towel, anytime you're touching the paint, that's when you have chances of scratching, marring, or inducing all that kind of damage on the surface. And imagine the compound effect when you're repeatedly washing your vehicle. Like me, for example, I wash my car twice weekly. So you always have to use safe washing and drying methods. And one point that is very safe is to use a shampoo, once again, or a car soap that has a lot of lubrication in there. You're going to look for things also like rinsing freely. That's important. And that's one thing we developed with the Clean by Pan, the Organizer shampoo, is to have a soap that rinses freely off the surface. What does that mean, right? Well, basically it means that it's not going to leave any residue, and it's not going to fight you off when you're rinsing the vehicle. A lot of people, they don't have a controlled environment like I do, and they cannot wash their car in their garage like I do. They have to do it outside, which means sometimes there might be sunlight. Of course, to have the best user experience with any car shampoo or any car detailing product, work in the shade on a cool surface, or of course, if you can in a garage, that's even better. But again, if you have to wash your car outside, I would recommend if it's in direct sunlight. Sometimes mobile detailers, they have no choice, right, to work in direct sunlight, or where you are that day, you might have no other choice but to work in direct sunlight. Pick a soap that states that it can be used in direct sunlight. Typically, those are more of the pH neutral ones. Like Alkaline by Pan the Organizer, we do mention that you can use this outside in the sun. And the cool thing is, even if it dries on the surface, when you come to rinse, it will kind of reactivate the soap, rinse it off freely, and it leaves no residue behind. So by leaving no residue behind, first of all, you're not masking or clogging whatever protection is underneath. You're not having any of that streaking or drying on the surface, which can potentially lead to other issues down the road. So rinsing freely means there's no soapy residue left behind. All that's left is your paint, or in the case if you have a wax sealant or ceramic coating, it should leave that clean and free and ready for you to use a drying aid if you want to, or just your microfiber towel to dry. By the way, if you're drying your vehicle with a microfiber towel, I highly recommend that you use a drying aid. It can be a quick detail spray or something that acts as a lubricant on the surface, right? To again put a buffer between your drying towel and the painted surface. That buffer will prevent marring during the drying stage. Or better yet, if you have a car dryer or a leaf blower, you can blow dry your vehicle, especially if you have a wax sealant or coating. The hydrophobic properties, those water beads, well, they're going to blow right off, and you're not using any contact on there. So there are zero chances of marring the paint at that point. So now, when do you use a high pH or low pH soap? And is there a place for those on the market? So in my experience, again, for regular weekly washes, when everything is fine, a pH neutral is typically all you need. But there are many occasions where you're going to need to bust out either a high pH or an alkaline soap, or a low pH or an acidic soap. When are those cases? Well, usually if you're done washing your car with whatever pH neutral you have, pH neutral soap or car shampoo, if you see that the hydrophobic properties, especially on your ceramic coatings, because those are pretty obvious, right? Normally they have nice tight round water beads and the water just sheds off or sheets off very quickly at a high rate. If somehow that's impeded, now assuming the coating was properly applied on the surface and it's still well within its lifespan or claimed durability, you shouldn't be getting good hydrophobic properties. If you're not getting tight round water beads, or if the water seems to sheet slower off the surface, that might mean that the coating itself can be masked or clogged by contamination. What type of contamination? Well, when you're driving on a road, you can have road film or traffic film. That's typically the oily substances that are on the road itself. It can come from motor oil or environmental contamination or whatever is chemically on the road surface, and especially when it's raining, that oil rises to the surface and then it gets splashed all over your vehicle as you're driving, and of course by other vehicles on the road, which are throwing all of those oily, grimy substances in the air, and then that sticks to the paint. And over time, that accumulation, a pH neutral soap alone might not be enough to fully remove that, right? So you need something with a stronger degreasing power. So that's when you can bust out a higher alkaline pH type soap or shampoo. So those are typically higher on the pH scale. It can be a 9.5, a 10, 11, 12, sometimes 13. I wouldn't necessarily go beyond that unless, again, they say that it's safe for automotive use. Always check the information of the product you want to purchase, or check for some reviews on YouTube from independent sources, and that can give you a good indication. So yeah, in that case, a higher pH soap, and I have many reviews. If you look at my channel, for example, recently we had a winter wash tutorial. I explained the high pH and low pH and when to use them, and you're going to see a demonstration of how we revive hydrophobic properties that we thought were gone but are still fully there. It's just that the ceramic coating was masked by all these elements or these contaminations. So high pH soap or the alkaline soaps usually is for grime, road film, traffic film, all that accumulation of kind of that organic material. It can be bug guts as well to help loosen that during your pre-wash stage with the foam cannon, because some of those soaps, they can be used as a pre-wash, right, in your foam cannon. So you blanket the vehicle with that foam, let it dwell, and then rinse. And some others can be used in the bucket for the contact wash, or both in the foam cannon and in the bucket. Check the instructions of the product you want to use. And then on the acidic side, when would we use an acidic or low pH soap? That typically is when you have things like mineral deposit accumulation. It can be water spots, right? If they're light and you catch them early enough, because don't forget, if you let water spots bake in the hot sun for for months on end, those acidic contents can start etching through the clear coat and cause permanent staining or damage. And the only way to remove that can be machine polishing and sometimes a panel respray if it's way too far gone. So you'd use an acidic soap or a low pH soap in that situation, and that's going to help to remove that mineral buildup off the surface. If you look at mineral deposit remover sprays or what we call water spot removers, those typically are a little acidic on the pH scale as well. So it's a spray. So you wash your vehicle first, right? You rinse it off, and then you can dry it if you want a higher concentration, or on the wet surface sometimes as well. You're just going to dilute it a little more by doing that if you leave it wet, but still you'd spray your water spot remover, and you can gently rub with a microfiber towel, because at that point, keep in mind, your car is clean, right? So that's going to help kind of to unclog or lift, but that's usually the more higher aggression level. You always start with the lowest aggression, and typically that's an acidic shampoo. So those water mineral deposits that you get over time, or those light water spots, if you catch them early enough, an acidic soap, when you wash your vehicle with that, either pre-treat or snow foam for your pre-wash, or in the bucket for your bucket wash, that typically is going to do the thing, and you're going to restore the hydrophobic properties and that super nice sheeting. Basically, you unclogged your ceramic coating, right? Or if that's not enough and you still see some water spots, then you can bump up the aggression level by using a water spot remover. Those sprays, also sometimes they call them mineral deposit removers, depending on the brand, but they all work kind of the same way. It's just their formulations are a bit different from one brand to another. So that's when you'd use high pH or low pH. So again, as a quick reminder, high pH or alkaline to remove kind of that road film, the grime, those oily substances, or that kind of veil that's on the surface. On white cars, sometimes they kind of look brownish. That's typically a sign of road film, right? So if you see that you're washing your car with your pH neutral soap and the hydrophobics aren't restored, that could be potentially an issue that you can solve with a higher pH or alkaline soap. So that's when we investigate, right? When things aren't going as planned with your traditional pH neutral soaps, that's when you can do a Sherlock Holmes and test different products to restore the hydrophobics. Again, assuming your protection is still there and it was applied properly. And then the low pH or acidic soaps, when you have mineral deposit accumulation, mineral deposit equaling things like water spots. If you get water spots, or if you live in an area, for example, you have sprinklers that are near your car and they have hard water, or you have hard water issues where you live, it can be well water or just hard water in general, right? So if you measure the total dissolved solids, or the TDS with a TDS meter, anything typically when you're starting to go above 150 to 175 ppm or parts per million, that's considered hard water. So if you do have that, some people, I know some of my viewers, you guys say you have like 300, 500, 800 ppm water. At that point, it's with a lot of line scale and other minerals in there, that can cause some damage on the surface, especially if it stays there for a long time. Water spots need to be addressed, right? So you can bust out the acidic soaps when you need to remove water spots if you catch them early enough, or a water spot remover, or sometimes even machine polishing. If it gets to a point where it started etching, you might need to do that. So always keep in mind, there are different levels to attack different issues you might be seeing. Another way you can correct hard water is to use a water deionizer setup, right? With resins in a tank that filter the water, they remove the minerals, and then you get 0 parts per million or 0 ppm. You can have reverse osmosis or RO water. You can use demineralized water. You can use distilled water to wash your car, whatever it may be. I have a video. If you look at water deionizer, I show you my simple setup in my garage. So for my final rinse, I usually like to activate my deionizer. That way I get a spot-free rinse. Technically, I could just let the water evaporate when I have 0 ppm, and there would be no water spots left behind. So that can be a solution if water spots are a problem for you. And last but not least, let's talk about touchless car soaps, right? So the ones that you just foam on the vehicle, you let them dwell, whatever the recipe is. Some use high pH and low pH and then rinse. Some just use one soap that does it all. Each manufacturer has its own thing. How do they clean a surface compared to a traditional foam, rinse, foam, and contact wash, right? If that's the kind of thing that you do, or if you use a rinseless wash method with the sponge, whatever it may be, basically having a contact portion. So touchless versus traditional method. In my experience, if you have only a mildly dirty vehicle, meaning it just has a light layer of dust A touchless wash can be effective if done correctly, of course, in the right scenario, and if you're just looking for a quick way to wash the vehicle, because one thing they do have going for them, the touchless washes, is they're super efficient in time, right? What might take you 45 minutes to about an hour to do manually, those can usually be done in 5 to 10 minutes, and the process is done. So you're going to get typically 80 to 90% there, sometimes a little higher. Again, if it's just a light layer of dust, well, yes, a touchless wash can do the job and do the trick. Once you rinse that down, you should see good hydrophobics, and you can blow dry it and then your vehicle off, and then you have a fully touchless experience, right? So no contact and in the wash stage, and no contact in the drying stage. So 0 chances of marring. However, if the car is mildly to very dirty, in that case, the only way to get 100% clean result, in my opinion, once again, and based on my experience, is with a contact wash. So even if you have the best snow foams in the world, what they'll typically do in the pre-wash stage is start to loosen the dirt and the debris and start to break down a bit of that road film and the contamination kind of stuff for you to be able to rinse the majority of it off. But when we're saying the majority of it off, we're talking about the grit. So the dirt that's on the surface that is loose, that can actually be released by the snow foam, right? So emulsified or encapsulated in some cases, lifted off the surface and then rinsed off. That's what a good snow foam will do. But then you still need to follow up for whatever film is still on there that wasn't rinsed with the snow foam stage. Well, you need the contact wash for that. And a simple way to see that is, well, let's say you have a ceramic coating, right? And you just use your pre-wash or touchless or whatever it can be, foam or snow foam for the pre-wash stage. And by touchless, I mean without touching, right? Not necessarily a brand. I mean, in general, touchless method means you're spraying something on, you're not touching the vehicle, and you rinse it off. So when you're rinsing that off, if you see that the hydrophobics still aren't there, the water is not beating and it's just sheeting on the surface, well, that tells you that there's still a film there. So you might have released the grit, but if there's still a film or oily substance or some type of soiling on the surface, that's when the contact, so the mechanical agitation, the combination of your microfiber wash mitt or your microfiber towel, whatever wash media you use, and the car shampoo is going to physically remove or release the rest of that film, and then you're going to restore the hydrophobics. Sometimes, again, keep in mind, you need to use a high pH or a low pH depending on what situation you have, but in general, doing that with a pH neutral should work if you keep on regular maintenance. Again, I wash my car 2 times a week, so it's very rare that it gets super dirty to a point where I need to use high pH or low pH stuff to help out. But every now and then in the winter months, because we use calcium chloride, magnesium chloride, or road salts on the roads with the very harsh Canadian winters, right? Sometimes, yeah, you'll need to get that every other month, perhaps in the winter time, to make sure you just restore your ceramic coating or your paint protection to its original state and maximizing its properties. So yeah, so in those cases where you're going to need to follow up with a contact wash. So in a general type of thing, do contactless or what we call touchless type soaps work well? That depends on your situation. Perhaps if you live in an area like California where it never snows and there's not much road contamination on your vehicle, it's garage kept, you have low yearly mileage. Perhaps if it's only just slightly dirty with dust, but no real dirt, a touchless soap can perhaps work for you. So that's for you to investigate. But typically speaking, usually the touchless soaps will not necessarily get 100% clean results. Even some brands themselves, the ones that are honest, they'll tell you it works the majority of the time correctly if used well. And that's another thing, you have to use the system exactly as they tell you, so follow the instructions. But if the car is moderately dirty to very dirty, well, you're usually, at least in my experience, find that you have to follow up with a contact wash. And that's when you see that everything is fully clean, because that mechanical agitation allows you to get everywhere, including into the nooks and crannies. Sometimes you can use a soft detail brush to get behind emblems and grills and badges and all that kind of stuff that a touchless shampoo on its own or a contactless shampoo doesn't necessarily achieve for you, right? So I see the touchless soaps more as an added tool, should we say? So something that can be effective, at least for the pre-wash stage, to help release a lot of that grit, dirt, and grime. But I usually find that following up with a true contact wash with a good car shampoo, something like the Clean by Pan, the Organizer car shampoo, usually does the trick great degreasing properties, pH neutral, can be used in direct sunlight. Very easy to dilute, by the way, because it's more of that runny consistency. So it's not super thick in the bottle, allowing you to properly dilute it. It's properly concentrated too. This is a 1 to 256 ratio. So in your bucket, you're only going to use half an ounce for every gallon of water. So if you put 4 gallons of water in your bucket, all you need is 2 ounces of this, and it does a fantastic job at cleaning the surface. You can also use this in the foam cannon if you want to. I typically recommend that you start with a 1 to 10 ratio in the foam cannon. So 2 ounces of the soap and 20 ounces of water. That's typically 22 ounces, or a 1 to 10 dilution ratio. And that works quite well. If you have good water like I do and you have no issues with your setup, I can escape with only 1 ounce in a foam cannon. So I can put like maybe 30 ounces of water and 1 ounce of foam, and it works well. You can put 30 ounces of water and 2 ounces of the soap. Again, adjust your quantity of soap that you're using regardless of which shampoo you're using according to your setup, because there's a lot of things that can influence in the foam cannon, and I have a video on that. Factors that can influence the amount of foam generated, because even if you're following the instructions of the shampoo, sometimes you might not be getting the foam that you're expecting. So it can be the foam cannon type that you're using. Some foam more than others, some dilute products more than others. There are many videos on the net about that. The type of shampoo that you're using, so not all shampoos foam the same. The dilution ratio of that shampoo, right? So start off with the manufacturer's recommended dilution ratios and then adjust accordingly. If you have too much foam generated, well, then use less. If you want more, use more product. Also, the type of pressure washer that you're using can affect the amount of foam. So higher the GPM or the water output or water flow, the more foam you're going to get. If you use something like my Krenzla 1122 TST that pushes out 2.1 gallons per minute of water, that is a lot of water coming out. I never have foaming issues. If you have a weaker pressure washer that only has 1.2 to 1.3 GPM, well, you might want to use either more soap or perhaps change the orifice on your foam cannon. Typically, foam cannons come with a 1.25 millimeter. And sometimes some of them also come with a 1.1 millimeter. So by reducing the size of that orifice in your foam cannon, you're increasing the pressure going through and you're generating more foam. Just keep in mind that that could trip your breaker if you only have a 15 amp circuit breaker. So check that out. Then the water quality is the fifth topic we spoke about in that other video, by the way, of how to get more foam from your snow foam or your foam cannon. So check that video out. But definitely, yeah, water that is very hard will affect the amount of suds or the amount of foam that you're getting from your shampoo or your snow foam. So the softer the water, closer to 0 parts per million, like distilled water, deionized water, or reverse osmosis water, that's the best. So the better the water quality, the better shampoo you're going to be getting, meaning the more suds and the more foam you're going to be getting. So hopefully, guys, you got a lot from this, and we answered the questions. So is the pH scale the only factor for selecting a car shampoo or a car soap? So the answer to that was clearly no, and we explained why. Then when to use high pH or low pH soaps, which now you fully understand, right? High pH soaps are alkaline for removing that road film, traffic film, the grime, oily substances, bug guts, that kind of stuff. And the more acidic soap or low pH for mineral deposits and water spots and all that kind of stuff. And then a touchless or contactless soap compared to the traditional contact wash method. Are they as effective? And that is more of a case by case, yes and no type thing. But in general, I find that a full contact wash is needed after your pre-wash. So yeah, let me know your experiences. So what kind of things did you notice? Do you agree with any of these points? Do you disagree with any of these points? Let me know. Drop a comment in the comment section under the video. As long as everybody stays polite and courteous, it's always fun to have these exchanges among viewers and different types of views and philosophies on things based on your conditions and your experiences. Because again, I only share my opinions based on my thoughts, based on my experience, right? So yeah, I appreciate you guys for being there. In the meantime, don't forget, keep it tight, keep it clean, and I'll see you on the next one.